this time of the year was made into yet another retail festival driven by consumerism and greed, and long before the Christian Church decided to tie its own All Hallows Eve and All Saints' Day to this age-old festival, since Neolithic times the ancient Celts observed and celebrated with rituals and customs that still survive today, albeit in different forms. Samhain, summer's end, the first day of winter, the time when early farmers brought their animals from summer pastures to the warmth and safety of nearby enclosures. The time when all to be harvested must be safely stored, as come the first day of November, the Shiasin, fairies, would blight all with icy breath. A time when the veil between the world of the living and the world of the dead is thin. Time loses all meaning. Past, present and future is one. On this Samhain night, the doors of the fairy mounds are open in both directions. The Slua, spirits of the restless dead, look for mischief and mayhem, and the ghosts of our ancestors seek the warmth and love of the family home. Samhain was the third and final harvest festival, celebrated from sunset on the 31st of October until sunset on the 1st of November. The sun god was dead and had been buried in the earth, mourned by the goddess, dormant until the beginning of his rebirth at Yule. It was the end of the old year and the beginning of the new. Fires and hearths were extinguished, and new fires lit with a flame drawn from a community bonfire. Sometimes two bonfires were built side by side, and the people and their animals would walk between them as a cleansing ritual. The ashes from the main bonfire were sprinkled on fields in order to give blessings to future crops. And of course there is science in this ritual, as ash is a known soil improver. Menfolk also lit torches from the community bonfire and circled their homes and land for protection. This is where the tradition of neat lanterns comes from. A carved out turnip containing a candle and placed outside a home to ward off evil spirits. It represents a spirit caught between the two worlds and offers protection by serving as a warning. Nowadays, the much easier to carve pumpkin generally takes its place. Samhain's association with death and the dead merely reflects the world's natural cycle, and is not about fearing mortality, but about honouring ancestors. It most certainly was never connected with devil worshipping. This is a myth created by the Christian Church, and more recently by fiction authors and Hollywood. Ancient pagans did not believe in eternal damnation, and this was one of the reasons the Christian Church wanted to eradicate pagan beliefs. They knew they couldn't control masses without threat and fear. Perhaps Christians got confused by pagans worshipping horn gods, such as the Celtic Cernunnos. He is protector of the forests and is simply a masculine aspect of the divine, or a consort of the goddess. In 600 ACE, Pope Gregory told his missionaries to work with ancient pagan traditions rather than destroy them. So then everything from sacred trees to springs dedicated to the goddess to burial mounds and stone circles became Christianized or developed over, and this included our ancient festivals. Dressing up was always part of the Samhain traditions. In ancient times, Druid priests wore animal skins and heads during their Samhain rituals, whilst the villagers wore masks or blackened their faces. It was thought that by disguising themselves as spirits, they could venture out safely without being detected by those roaming spirits. In Scotland, this disguising became guising, whereby local children knocked at doors and performed a song or poem in order to be rewarded. This rewarding would bring luck to the household for the coming year and protection from evil spirits. American trick-or-treating only came into being in the 1920s. Food has always been an important component of every pagan festival, and again this is reflected in customs and rituals that have come up through the ages. Take apple duking, as it's known in Scotland. To our ancient ancestors, apples were sacred and used for divination. The pagan ritual of chopping an apple in half to reveal the pentagram is still practised today. There is a myth that apple duking is based on the Druids putting apples in boiling water and forcing victims' head in by way of human sacrifice, but this is false. It seems far more likely that the custom is a muddled up fusion of the apple being sacred to the pagans, the invading Romans bringing the festival of Pomona, goddess of the orchards, to Britain, and more darkly, the archaic practice of the ducking of witches to determine their innocence. One apple-related divination practised at Samhain was that of a young woman peeling an apple all in one and throwing the peel over her shoulder. The shape it landed in would reveal the first initial of the man she would marry. Another traditional custom that survives today is that of a Samhain supper. This meal is eaten as near to midnight as possible and is taken in absolute silence. One place is set at the head of the table for the ancestors who wish to return, and all doors and windows are left unlocked during the meal in order to facilitate this return. Food and drink is served to the empty place without looking at the seat, as it's unlucky to see the dead. At the end of the meal, the untouched food and drink is then taken outside and left as an offering to the Sidhe. The oldest uninterrupted pagan Samhain ritual on record takes place every year in Glen Cally, which joins Glen Lyon, Scotland. This ritual has been observed for thousands of years. There is a small turf-roofed hut called a shieling, which houses a number of stones which represent the Cally and her family. The Cally is the crone aspect of the triple goddess, the winter hag, the veiled one, ruler of the winter months, the waning moon, the eternal womb of rebirth. The site is the only surviving shrine to the Cally in the world. Every Samhain the stones, which have been outside since Beltane in May, are placed inside the hut and remain there until the following Beltane. This ritual was once performed by those who lived in the glen, but is now continued by those who work on the land, such as gamekeepers. The ritual is linked with farming prosperity, and as long as the stones are cared for, Glen Lyon will be fertile and fruitful. Whilst my dwellings have been upon the Scottish Celtic traditions, it should be remembered that many other ancient cultures held and still hold similar festivals at this time of year. For example, Mexico's Day of the Dead has its roots in rituals practised 3,000 years ago, and the Scandinavians have the Alpha Blot and the Dissablot, events held after the final harvest just as winter comes in. Fun fact: on the dwarf planet of Ceres, which resides in the asteroid belt between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, is a chain of craters named after this Celtic festival. Samhain Catena are around 715 kilometres in diameter. A quick trip around my Samhain altar. I have the four elements represented by black crystals for earth, incense for air, a seashell for water, and a flame for fire. In the harvest basket at the back, I have cuttings of juniper and rosemary for protection. There's representation of the Sidhe fairies, and a very primitive goddess figure. The skull signifies the dead, and the three crow feathers are representative of the messenger wings between the worlds of the living and the dead. The paper underneath the skull is what I refer to as my egg tree, a list of direct line female ancestors back to the 1700s. My ritual is very female centric, so this seems highly appropriate. The cauldron will be used for the burning of these bits of paper. Written on them is a variety of negative aspects in the lives of me and mine from the past year. The candles, I have a silver candle representing the goddess and a purple representing female power. The orange and black candles, they're the colours of the season, but also black repels negativity whilst orange signifies memory, which is of course applicable at this time when remembering the dead. The bell, the theme, and the wand are all pretty standard on a pagan altar. Whichever way you choose to observe Samhain or Halloween, may the turning of the wheel of the year bring you strength and joy. May the ancestors deliver blessings on you and yours, and may the Samhain cleanse your mind, your heart, and your spirit. Blessed be